Greetings, Mark Goering, publisher of the Conway Daily Sun, and my guest today is Nancy Clark. She's owner of Drive Brand Studio, a marketing firm, public relations, local, state, and national.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
she's very involved with small business initiatives and concerns. And Nancy, you just got back from Washington for your second of two trips
Yes.
in the last month or so. So,
That's right.
What'd you do in Washington?
Well, I've been, I'm a member of two different organizations. I'm a member of a lot, but two specific to small business organizations. One is called the Small Business Council. And so in the end of February, we went to Washington with that group, and that is small businesses across the country. So when we meet once a month and we discuss issues relating to our businesses. And then just last week, I went as part of Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses, and that's a national program that I was a member of, or I got accepted into. It's like a graduate business program, and I did that back in 2016.
And we have to say that when you were in Washington on this last trip, there were 60 people
Yes.
there, but only a couple. So you're
Right.
one of 60 from across the country.
Yes, for that particular,
Right,
for the
the Goldman
Goldman
Sachs.
Sachs event, it was the Rural Small Business Advocacy Conference, they called it. And there was 60 of us from across the country, all rural areas. All of us were from rural areas and were small businesses, but this one was specific to issues impacting us in rural areas. And then the one before that was, we only had a handful, maybe 20 of us from across the country, and that was national. But,
So what are the similarities? I mean, if it's rural, there were 60 of you there.
Mm-hmm.
And Goldman Sachs is doing this because, I mean, they're investment banking and all that. So they're doing that to encourage small business, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah.
it's a way to promote business.
Right.
In a good way.
Right, in a good
And
way. Right.
so what are the similarities that you saw with the issues of other rural areas and around the country compared to ours?
Right. Well, that is a great question, and it's not rural versus other areas of the country. It's small business issues that, and both of these trips to Washington, we have the exact same issues, and it doesn't matter if you are from a rural area or a metropolitan area. Really, the issues are the same, and it's the policies and the changes that are happening with the current administration and how those trickle down and impact those of us, our small businesses. And it's remarkable, some of those issues that you think are global or national are really trickling down and impacting whether it's my business here or an organization south of here or a small business outside of Portland, Oregon. It's all starting to impact us.
Okay, so putting aside
Did I answer your question?
You did, no, you did,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right.
So, putting aside what's happening now with the new administration, what are the issues that all businesses, small businesses that you've learned that are common to all small businesses going into the new Trump administration? What are the top issues?
Oh, okay. So the top issues have been consistent, and so it's a matter of degrees. We all have, issues with access to capital, particularly minority and women-owned businesses. That's been a real struggle. These are issues prior to the administration. Then I can talk about how they've gotten more difficult.
And why is that? I mean, just in a nutshell, why is it when you say have difficult access to capital for women and minorities?
Well, it's been now, and I'm going to say it's been an issue for many small businesses. For me, I haven't had that issue up until this year. And that is because consumer confidence and confidence in whether we'll have a recession or not has taken now it's starting to be a real issue. Are we going to have a recession or are we not?
I mean, when you say you mean you personally?
Me personally, for the first time since, oh my gosh, 2007, I actually had a bank turn me down for an increase in line of credit. And the line of credit for me, I don't need it to stay in business. It's just to anticipate what might be coming. First time. Now we're in such a fortunate position here in the Mount Washington Valley. We have so many great banks, so many great lenders that now I just need to go to somebody else until I find someone who believes in my business.
But you don't think you were denied because you're a woman?
No, but some of the businesses across the country have been. It's remarkable how women have had trouble getting funding. And for me, and I think it's because I'm in the Mount Washington Valley, I think that we are such an amazing, supportive community that, knock on wood, I have not seen that ever. But I'm one of the lucky ones. If you talk to businesses across the country, they're not so.
Huh. So what are
fortunate.
So that's one issue. What's
Okay,
the
so
other
that's
ones
one.
going?
Workforce recruitment and retention is a big issue.
So labor issues still
Yes,
across the country.
and housing is everywhere.
So it's not
not
just-
just here. It's not just here. It is in every single community, large, small. It does not matter.
Now we always say in this community, we say, oh, we have too many, second homes and all that stuff that puts pressure on it.
everywhere.
What are the people say in other communities of why they have a housing crisis?
They have a housing crisis because of the pandemic and the increase in the cost of real estate, and it has priced that first-time home buyer or the employee. It's priced them out of the market of buying their first home, and that's across the country. So this is a real issue. So that impacts workforce recruitment. Is if you can't find a place to live, how can you recruit employees? Now, you and I have talked about that. I have a theory that employers have to be part of the solution. We can complain about that, but we have to be part of the solution. So I think, like I bought a condo because fortunately I didn't have to pay too much for it because I needed a place to house someone when we're trying to recruit. And I have really good relationships with a couple of landlords in town. So if I am recruiting, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, do you have anything coming available? So we've just hired a new employee moving here from Utah, and they're going to go into one of these apartments that I have a relationship with the landlord.
Yeah.
So we have to be part of the solution, but it's a major issue, and it's across the board. But it's not just second homes, it's the cost of real estate and the ability to buy that first home.
And for some reason, homes, regardless of the administration, this country has not built homes for like 10 or 15 years to the level that we need to. And there's all kinds of issues. There's local zoning issues, and all that. So it's a pretty complicated issue.
So this last trip to Washington with the 7 New Hampshire businesses, we offered that up as a solution. Is at a federal and state level is when developers are building, is there should be some kind of requirement for affordable housing or workforce housing or however we designate it, that you can build your big complexes, your big homes or your big commercial, but can you put apartments above it? Those, so we try to be part of a solution.
How do you think about the same? This is a little diversion, but
Sure.
like the state, the House, our legislature's considering bills that would force communities to add additions to their homes or separate from their homes if they're hooked up to municipal sewer. And I guess my question is that we're so interested in local rule and local control in this state. How do you see that? How do you personally see that? Do you think the state should step in and basically set some standards for local communities to tell them that they have to take more, basically increase their density in housing?
See, that's a tough one. I think states should be involved from a governance big picture perspective, but then the town should step back and look at long-term planning and should step back, and they should be able to govern themselves, but it needs to be truly for their constituents, truly for the residents of the town, and what makes sense. I don't think it makes sense to force homeowners to build an addition, but I do think it makes sense to tie something to commercial business permits that encourages at least housing for your own employees. So if you're building a commercial entity or a new restaurant or a new shopping complex, whatever it is, let's say that whoever was coming in, I think there should be a requirement that, okay, if you're building this or you're renovating this big place, you need to do X number of housing. No different than you have to have X number of parking spots to accommodate that square footage. How about you have to build or acquire X number of housing units for your employees?
And that really,
I think that's part of being being part of the solution as a business owner. Or
Yeah, and what's
manager.
interesting about
Yeah.
that concept, it kind of harks back into the day before zoning,
Mm-hmm.
when we used to have villages. Right now, villages are either,
Yeah.
commercial or residential, but in the old days, it was a mix.
Right,
So that concept
right. Mm-hmm.
basically is kind of forcing it. And I think, I know you represent Ridgeline
I
down here
do,
by
yeah.
Eagles Way, but that's part of their plan too,
Right.
with having some commercial with residential on top.
Right.
Second floor.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And even all of the housing options they're building there. They're accomplishing a community need, which is commercial with
Yeah.
residential on top. Then they've got the affordable cottages. Then they have all the way through to assisted living and memory care. So really, it's not the birth to grave, but it is workforce, well, it's not designated workforce housing, but affordable housing, all the way to you can literally move there and live out your life there. And it's all in one community. It's right there, one big area. And it's just, I wish more developers would do that. And there's of course, you have to pay the bills. So you've got some high end, but that's on the longer term, the high end condos where Joe Hogan and Continuum, they're building this community.
Right,
there.
you've got the rental units already in
Yeah,
place, and then the over 55 is coming in regular homes.
Right.
So back to Washington.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
You and I do this, right?
Yeah. So so you identified a couple issues
Yes.
going into the administration: labor,
Right.
housing. Those are probably the big two.
Right.
Right.
Child
Access to-
care is also, access to affordable child care is huge, which dominoes into workforce retention,
Right.
workforce recruitment, and workforce retention. If you don't have housing, you don't have child care, how do you get people to come work here? And it's not here. When I say here, I say across the country. Big issues.
Any
that we're
other?
not
Any other? Is
solving.
that those are the top three big issues?
Yeah,
Access to capital is another
yeah,
one.
right.
And okay, so now you just went there last week or 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
right.
The administration's been in for a couple of months. I mean, lots happening there.
Yeah.
What are the small businesses feeling so far? I mean, the tariffs haven't started. That's going to affect certain businesses, including ours, actually, in the
Right.
newspaper business.
Oh my gosh.
And so what are the small businesses saying about the new administration?
I'm so
And I
glad
gotta
you
say,
asked
all right,
this,
and I got to
yeah.
say this is that you went to Goldman Sachs. I mean, this is a nonpartisan thing you went
Right,
to, right?
that's
so
right.
you're speaking with a
Right.
nonpartisan.
Yes.
I don't know what your politics are, but you're speaking as a nonpartisan person here.
I am, and I tried very much to go down there nonpartisan. We're fortunate for our entire New Hampshire delegation that was Democratic, except for our governor. But I did have a really good experience in conversation with her just, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Okay, so back to Washington. So yes, we go down there as a nonpartisan group. The second group, the first group does lean more Democratic because so many of administration's policies are impacting us, and the Republicans tend to be on one extreme side supporting the administration, and Democrats are on the other. We know that. We're not at all, we're so
Polarized,
separate,
yeah.
polarized is a word, than we ever have been, I think. So anyway, the things that we're talking about when we're there is the uncertainty of the economy and how that's impacting every single, it's small business because that's who I represent, but it's impacting all businesses. The uncertainty, will there be a recession, won't there? Just in the New York Times today, again, maybe there's going to be a recession, maybe not. So what happens when your consumer confidence goes down? People pull back on spending, and it doesn't matter what it is. But we wait. We take this wait and see attitude, and that's not good for small businesses. And you brought up the tariffs, which the tariffs haven't been in place yet. However, what's happening is businesses, suppliers are anticipating an impact of tariffs. So that when we were just in Washington last week, we had one of our New Hampshire small businesses, Irving Oil, already put a tariff surcharge on his bill, and he paid it. So fortunately, we had a meeting with Senator Hassan, who said, give me that bill, because that can't be happening. This is something I'm fighting right now.
That people are taking advantage
They're
of
taking advantage
Right.
of it, which is exactly what happened with the pandemic. At our ice cream shop, all of our trucking companies are suppliers for our ice cream stuff, they put on a fuel surcharge to accommodate the pandemic issues.
Never
right?
went away.
Never went away.
Right.
It's still on the bill today.
Yeah.
So that's what will happen with these tariffs. And we've all had immediate impacts of the tariffs. At the dinner we went to with the governor, there was a North Country restaurant up there. I think it was in Gorham. He said that his Canadian business has gone down so far that his business is really suffering. Me, I had a recent incident with a tariff where I'm working with a local home builder who had we put together a big marketing contract with him, and that builder had a spring project planned, and the homeowner said, "Can you guarantee the price?" And he said, "I don't think I can because I don't know the impact of tariffs yet. So I can't guarantee the price of your home." So the homeowner hasn't made a decision. Home builder doesn't know if he's going to get a job. Impacts all of the small contractors, the local plumber, the local electrician, the person who does the tile. He can't commit to them, then he can't commit to me with the marketing.
Now, there's no, I mean, really, since Smoot-Hawley in the 30s, there's been
That's way before I was born.
Well, it was
Thanks
only a year or
anyway,
two
but
before
yeah,
I was
right.
born. But it was, I mean, that's really the last time tariffs have been really tried. And of course, it ended up in the Great Depression. And no president has favored tariffs since until Trump.
Right.
So what are some of the rural, not rural, I say rural, small
all
business people,
businesses.
like from the Midwest, where it's really kind of Trump company country more than here? What do they say about the tariffs?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Like minds tend to hang around together. So even in the nonpartisan Goldman Sachs group, there wasn't anyone that I talked to in that group of 60 who were supportive of tariffs, whatever side of the aisle you're on. So because every single person is seeing the tariffs I guess they're designed to penalize Mexico, Canada, and China, but they're not, because of the anticipation of the impact on tariffs of all of us, where it seemed to be universal that it's a really bad strategy for us, for the citizens, residents of the United States. And that, so I didn't have anyone. Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, that the administration has taken this wait and see, that there has to be some disruption before the economy gets better. The problem with a small business is we don't have time for disruption. When we lose a contract today, or we have to pay an oil bill tomorrow, we can't wait for this dust to settle and this whatever's happening. Because it impacts us right now today. When I lose a contract, when I take on a contract, we bill 25%. It goes to, let's get started, let's start the work. That's money right there. The guy who paid that oil bill, he lost money because of a tariff that isn't even in place yet. So,
well, it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out for sure. I mean, Trump has said with Canada, it's like to stop the fentanyl, but there's only like 30 pounds or 40 pounds of fentanyl. So there's a lot of politics here, and we'll see what happens.
And that's the big picture. Is the tariffs with Canada impacting drug dealers? Or is it impacting the man in Gorham who has a restaurant whose business relies on Canadian tourists?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we have a couple of photos, Rob. So let's see. Now, I got to remind viewers, this is, even though Nancy is with our Democrats, because our federal delegation are all Democrats. So, but it's a nonpartisan trip. So I just want to remind people.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so you go.
So this is a Dad's Caucus, which I think we were invited to listen into the Dad's Caucus, which is members of Congress who had come together to, there you see the sign in the background. It's about child care and supporting all of us, but it's dads. And it was just fascinating. They didn't get much accomplished. It was more listening to some stories and some testimony, and then they all had other things to do. Both times I went to Washington, it was very busy.
Yeah.
So.
And
this is with Maggie Goodlander, who is District 1. District 2 is Congressman Pappas. And so these are all New Hampshire business owners there. Matthew's right here, the back of his head, who is with White Horse Recovery.
Matthew Place,
Yeah. So, and that we were talking to her about all these issues. She is on the small business committee there, and she passed her first bill, and I don't remember what it was, but passed her first bill. She's a junior. This is Congressman Pappas, who is our district congressman.
And who's on the left there?
So on the left, this is John Arnsmeyer, who is the president of the Small Business Majority, the organization that I'm with, that I went to down there. On the right is a child care owner on Long Island. She and I paired up to do all these meetings, and we met with the New Hampshire delegation and we met with New York delegation. And her issues were child care related. And this is her Congresswoman, Laura Gillen. There. And on the right is a Small Business Majority Government Affairs person.
Very nice.
There's Senator
Maggie,
Hassan, right? Yeah.
Very good. And
that's with Maggie Goodlander again.
And she's our new congressperson.
Yes, she is.
From another district. We may run for Senate, actually.
I know. Yeah, that Senate seat's going to be open.
Yep.
We got passes. Senator Shaheen's office gave us passes to the galley to watch both Congress and the Senate. It was eye-opening, the Congress. Senate wasn't in session, but the Congress was voting on the budget resolution when we watched, and it was, I like professional decorum and Robert's Rules of Order, and there was none of that.
Oh, wow.
None of that. It was a free-for-all.
Kind of like a Kearsarge precinct meeting.
Oh, thank goodness I was in Washington. I didn't go to that because I was in Washington.
Yeah, no, well, that was quite the show.
I heard that.
All right, so now you had mentioned going back to the state, and you had a conversation with the governor, and that's when when she was in Mount Washington.
Right.
So give us your impression of where she's at with following the Trump policies and what you think she's going to do for New Hampshire.
Right. I was really, really impressed. And full disclosure, as I mentioned to you earlier, I did not vote for her. I was a huge supporter of her when she was part of the all-female delegation, when she was a senator. They got so much done, all those. It was just a powerhouse of women during that time period. But when she ran for governor, I listened to her and I saw her really follow a lot of Trump's policies, many, many, many of which I don't agree with. So I did not vote for her. But I had this amazing experience with her at dinner up at the Glenn House. And I felt she was genuine and authentic, and she really has New Hampshire's best interest at heart, which means there are some policies that the administration is putting in that she doesn't feel are good for New Hampshire. And the tariffs, we had a discussion about the tariffs, and she just said again that there are policies going into place that I don't feel are in the best interest of New Hampshire. So I was really encouraged by that. She was, like I said, she was sincere and genuine, and I feel that New Hampshire is in good hands with her. As long as she can, just like everyone else, can get their voices heard above some of the noise that's happening down there right now. And what I'd like to do next is these 7 businesses that I just went to Washington with, New Hampshire businesses, we've talked about seeing if we can have a meeting with the governor to go through these same issues, because we're all, there's just so much that's impacting New Hampshire, particularly the small businesses here in New Hampshire. That's what we're made up of.
Well, it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously the House is in session now, and you know, with the House dominated by the Republicans, they're just passing everything they ever wanted to pass, including the education vouchers. I mean, there's a lot going on that that I don't agree with, and I'm sure, I'm guessing you don't either on some of those things. So it'll be interesting to see what she vetoes or not. I know. Because she's going to have a lot on her desk.
She is, I know. And it will be interesting to watch. So now, I'm hopeful.
Locally, what do you hear? I mean, you have your hands in a lot of pies in this in the community. I mean, one thing that's interesting is going on in Jackson with Eric, who bought Black Mountain, and he's the, you know, he owns Indy Pass, which is the big platform for skiers around ski areas, independent skiers around the country. And then Mark LaHood is up there, bought, you know, Anna Thornhill. I mean, there's a lot. Jackson could be like it's always at the Tony part of town, but it could be like the new Aspen. Is what I'm thinking.
Oh, ouch. No fur coats, no Aspen. Maybe like the new Telluride.
Okay,
that's
new Telluride.
More,
But what's your sense of what's going on in this community? With the, I mean, we've had a big growth spurt. I mean, what are your clients telling you? What's your sense of our local economy?
Well, boy, it's hard to separate the two, right? The consumer confidence and threat of a recession is impacting us all because we're all like holding our breath, right? But I'll tell you what I think about Black Mountain. I think, and I'm in marketing, and so our team talks about the brilliance of that, his social media, his marketing campaign this year. He created this party, this amazing, like, I gotta be there. I mean, talk about FOMO. If you don't go to Black, you're missing out. I'm interested to watch the sustainability of that. But brilliant this year in terms of that energy. And I think that all of us could pick some of that away. We don't all have to be a party, but it's the like, I got to be part of this. And I love the movement of people buying the different inns and keeping them in business and thriving and evolving. We have to, as businesses, we have to evolve in order to stay in business. So I am always, okay, back up. As an entrepreneur, business owner, I'm by nature optimistic. I mean, you are too, right? That's why we bought this. We literally thought we could own a business. How optimistic could you get? And it goes like this. So I have great optimism for this valley because I always have. That's why Rob and I stayed here all those years ago. We were going to move 5 years and move on, but we love what's happening. I love what's happening at Norcross Place with Sap House Meadery and Saco Brewing and Cheese Louise. There's this bubbling of some vibrancy and some life. And Cheese Louise, Bryce Harrison, has another plan for another business. And I mean, there's just some really, really cool stuff happening. So because of that, I'm really optimistic about the
I mean, you probably
valley.
feel this too, but it's a little bit of a generational change too.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't it great that it's getting younger?
Yeah.
Well, you and I will always be young.
Yeah.
So I put myself in that.
You know, and even on the
I
retail
love that.
side, it's interesting that with job lots going into JCPenney and Sierra and the freight whatever that's called, going into the old Christmas tree shop. So it does seem as though how do you like the hotel across from your ice cream shop?
Well, here's the thing.
Because I'll tell you this, I'm probably the only person, I've said this many times, I'm the only person who likes it.
Yeah.
I think it looks nice. It used to be a grand hotel there in the 1800s.
I know.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
But it's right across the street from you.
Yes, it is.
So you have a ready-made clientele right there.
That's right. So Rob and I mean, we're traditionalists, right? So we love the little traditional motels. We always do. You know, the little drive-in, you sit on the little chair outside. So we were sad to see that go. We were absolutely sad to see that go. But then this whole...
And that was the old Cannell Motel.
It was, yeah.
John Cannell.
And that, it's part of our history, and no one really likes change and wants history to go away. But then when this went in, and it is going in, I think it looks nice, and I think they've done a nice job. And we're accepting of it. I mean, and they're going to have that gorgeous view of Mount Washington from the roof. I think they've got a rooftop and a restaurant. And I mean, I'm sorry for the people behind it who lost their view. And so full disclosure, I'm hoping it helps the ice cream shop a little.
Sure,
so,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, you
so
can have...
I think they did a nice job considering what it is. And
Well, the most impressive, like I said, I think it's an attractive building. I know it's big and all that, but the fact that they had white clapboard.
I know, I love that.
That was really what made it, and it kind of fits in. And, but anyway, okay, Nancy, our time is up, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
Any closing comments about the economy in general? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think more so for businesses, right? The importance of collaboration, and we're all in this together. So make sure you're getting together with your other fellow business owners and talk about it, and stay hopeful and optimistic, because there's always something, a loophole in a positive way, and to really keep talking. I had an example just the other day where I was part of a CEO roundtable, and 2 women and I, really 3 of us we had another meeting yesterday. They're business owners in Atlanta. We have nothing in common except that all 3 of us are small businesses. So we're collaborating, brainstorming, keeping the hope.
Very good, Nancy.
Thank
Always a
you
pleasure.
so much.
All right.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks.